Tucker, kind of going to discuss his new single and, his music in general and what he's got going on and maybe what we've got coming up and going forward. So, yeah, nice to be talking with you. So, just to start, how long have you been making music?
I've been making music since I was 11. I've been
Oh,
being a
wow.
solo artist for that long, yeah.
That's crazy. So, is that when you started playing and learning guitar, or is that just since you've been like producing your own music?
I started playing drums when I
Okay.
was 5. So I
Wow.
started with drums, then I moved to piano, bass, and guitar. But of course, I started in a Beatles tribute band, and I think before I became a solo artist, I was touring with Zendaya. I was
Oh,
in a Kiss
okay.
tribute band. Um, but yeah, when I was 11, then I started making my own music.
So when did you tour with Zendaya?
I toured with Zendaya the summer of 2013, I think. I think it was like
Wow.
12 or 13, something like that. It was really awesome because it was the first time that I'd ever played that I'd ever played in a state outside of Texas. I went to Chicago, California, New York, and I even went to
Wow.
Canada. It was awesome.
That's so cool. So how many instruments do you play total now?
I always forget. I play drums, piano, bass, guitar, ukulele, mandolin. I sing, like, all the classical percussion stuff, and all that kinda gets muddy. Uh, Harmonica, somewhere around, like, 8, maybe 10 if you include, like,
Wow.
some other ones, but yeah.
Are you self-taught or did you take lessons in all of these different instruments or did you kind of pick them up yourself like as you got older?
I when I started out with drums, I had a few months of lessons, but mostly I'm self-taught on everything, and I had a few months of piano lessons, but everything else, I kinda got that foundation, and then I just moved from there on my own.
Right. Well, you have perfect pitch, right?
Yes, I
So
do.
I'm sure that that helped. When did you figure out that that was something that you could do or that you had an affinity for?
I'm not really sure when exactly I like found out. I think it was when I was starting to take piano lessons when I was like 6, something like
Okay.
that. I was just taking lessons, and by the time I had learned what like they were called, I just kind of like knew it, and I would turn away from the piano. He'd play a note, and I'd be like, "Oh, that's a F," you know.
That's insane. That kind of thing blows my mind. Like that's like real life superpowers. I don't that is a feat of the human brain that I've never been able to fathom. So that's super cool. Um
Thank you so much.
yeah. So I'm sure that that makes things like picking up new instruments and performance in general, if you want to switch the key, be like, "Hey," cuz you seem like you have a pretty good understanding of music theory. What are some parts of performance that you do find challenging?
Ooh, the one thing that I keep having to remind myself of, especially with performing, is that it's 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 playing first and performing second. Putting on the show. Because it's important to actually like play the songs correctly and not just kind of like move around and look like you're playing them correctly. Um, but that's one thing that I have to remind myself of whenever I'm playing live. But at this point, it's just become second nature because I've worked it into muscle memory, and I've just been doing it for so long and practicing and practicing. It's a wonderful feeling now, just to get
Yeah.
to play music for other people that enjoy what I do.
I've seen you play live once, and it was like back in September or October at like a outdoor thing. I think it was in Aurora. Um, and you do have like a fantastic stage presence, but what I did notice was the musicianship was what you led with first and foremost. I haven't seen you with either of the bands that you're in. It was just you solo. How many projects are you in currently right now?
Currently, I have the Real Rock Revolution, which is now a merge of the previous Real Rock Revolution and Violent Device. Two three pieces are now one four
Okay.
piece. planning on releasing a new album sometime this year.
Right on.
Um, and I'm also in a Led Zeppelin tribute band. I play drums in that, and I play with my good friend Therese Marie. I also play drums for her. And I'm also in a band called Supernova Remnants, where I'm also on drums with a
Wow.
guy named Robbie. And yeah, I think those are all my projects.
So you basically
at the
do it
moment.
full time. That's like your deal is just music full time. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
So you were on American Idol and The Voice, correct? Was that around the same time or what was the I mean, when did you do both of those? Can you tell us a little bit about like what your experience was auditioning for both of those shows?
The first one that I went on was The Voice. I started doing that, and it was in 2015. I I got scouted, which basically
Okay.
means that I guess they found a video. They actually found me by looking at the Texas Top 10 under 20 competition that I had done, I think, the year earlier. And of course, that's a guitar competition. I don't know why they would look for vocal contestants on a guitar competition, but they found me, and
You were like 15 at that time?
15, 16, something like that. Yeah, I
Okay.
think I was just turning 16 by the time the blind auditions came around,
Wow. Okay.
and I was doing that, and of course, both The Voice, well, American Idol, I did when I was 17, and that was in 2007. I think it was 2017, somewhere around that time. It's hard to remember. Um, but both those shows they're really surreal experiences because they are TV shows, and it's
Right.
weird, especially with The Voice, because I was on season 12, and it was so weird to walk onto that set that you see like through your TV screen.
Right.
It's hard to remember that like that's actually like a place that you can like be in.
Right. B, yeah.
Yeah. Um, and of course, it was just weird it was surreal getting to meet the judges like Lionel Richie, Adam Levine, Alicia Keys, Gwen Stefani, Blake Shelton, Katy Perry, Luke Bryan. They were all amazing, and they were all very very nice to meet. And but even better, I got to meet a lot of people who have the same dream and desire that I do, which is
Right.
to make music for make music for a living and have fun doing what I do. Um, and it was really cool to get to meet all these different people some of them write their own music, some of them just
Right.
want to be able just to sing for a living and sing
Right.
other people's songs. But it was great to get to meet all those great people.
That's awesome. So is music something that you always knew you wanted to do from the time that you were a little kid? Is that like, the moment you were 5 years old, you were like, I want to be a rock star? Or did you have other things that you had planned on doing and music just kind of happened?
Music was the only thing that I ever wanted to do. I was 5 years old, and of course I had gotten a drum set, and I was like, well, at first I wanted to be a drummer. Of course, you can't exactly be a solo artist and be a successful solo artist on drums unless you're like Phil Collins.
Right?
Um, but I never really thought of anything else that I really wanted to do for the rest of my life. And once music kind of came into the picture, I just kind of clung on to that stubbornly.
That's
Um,
awesome. That's a
yeah,
good way to put it. A lot of your music is inspired and influenced, obviously, by, um, you know, Baroque pop and rock and roll, the late 60s, 70s type stuff. So, and I know you're still really young and you weren't around in the 70s, so you can only speculate about how music was made then. But in your opinion, how does making music in the 2020s differ from making music in, say what people would call the heyday of rock and roll?
well, the biggest thing is that most everybody has moved into digital recording now. Um, and of course, recording back then when you were recording with tape, it wasn't exactly just like you start over, you can just delete something and it
Right,
doesn't like, cost you anything.
right, 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 right.
But with tape, some tape gets pretty expensive, so you have to really just be on the money whenever you're recording and just kind of know what you're playing and be able to play it as like like in as few takes as possible.
Right.
Um, so I feel like that's kind of been lost in today's digital world where you can just kind of delete
Sure.
and start over and punch in. But of course, with moving into the digital realm, it's helped musicians, especially with recording demos. It's so much easier to record, especially with me because I play all these different instruments. It's so much easier to just record the full arrangement on
Right.
GarageBand, say, and just be able to do that and do however many takes I want and layer as many tracks as I
Right.
want. I don't need to like rely on just 8 tracks. I can have like 32 with GarageBand.
Right.
It's become so much easier, but we take a lot of things for granted.
Sure.
I love the tape sound. I just like the way the tape sounds whenever stuff just goes onto it, and I've seen videos where they like compare the different sounds and all that type
Yeah.
of stuff.
I think it
But
makes you
yeah,
work
there's definitely
harder
positives and negatives.
too. Like when you're especially back in like the 50s and 60s when they would just like get everybody in the room and like everyone was literally recording the track all together in the room because they had like one or two tracks, and it's like we've come so far. And I feel like one of the first records that really, besides like the Nine Inch Nails stuff, but like the Foo Fighters album that Dave Grohl did by himself. And obviously Prince was doing some aspects of that too, where he was recording every single track on a record. But it's been such an evolution, especially within the last 20 years, where we're seeing people like you that can play everything, and you're like, I'll just do the whole record. So I think there's definitely merit to both, but that's an interesting take that you have on it. What acts and musicians have inspired you specifically? And it doesn't just have to be musicians, but if you have, there's visual art that inspires you, or like authors or whatever. What medium of art do you draw inspiration from when you are making music?
My biggest influence is the Beatles, no question, hands down. I've loved them from the time I was 3, and I've just been listening to them my whole life. I was actually just listening to them before, just a few minutes ago. Um, I love them so much. They revolutionized the future of music and of all music in
Absolutely.
general. But of course, I love AC/DC. I love Kiss, Queen, Zeppelin, all the big classic rock bands, Aerosmith,
Right.
and all those different bands. Yeah.
What's your favorite Beatles record?
Favorite Beatles record? Mm, I definitely love the mid period of the Beatles.
Sure.
Like from 65 to 67. And I'd have to that's tough.
It's hard.
I'd probably go with Sergeant Pepper. I know that's kind of a basic answer,
It's a
but
good one.
I really do love that record because it's got like Lucy in the Sky on it. It's got A Day in the Life. It's
It's
got
just it comes in so hard too. Like the from the very first track, it is just rocking and rolling.
oh
Um,
yeah.
it's my second favorite. My favorite's Rubber Soul, but Sergeant Pepper's is right behind it. That's cool. What's your favorite Zeppelin? These are the like two questions that are impossible for anyone to answer.
Right. My favorite Zeppelin record. I most of the time I usually answer Houses the Holy.
A good
Houses the
one.
Holy. It's 8 tracks. I know some people say Physical Graffiti because it is a great double album. But I think Houses of the Holy is it just there's less filler on it.
I
And
agree
I,
with
I
that.
and of course Physical Graffiti has like Brawn Your R. It's got Boogie with Stu. I mean, not exactly Zeppelin's best tracks. Um, but Houses of the Holy from top to bottom, it's got Song Remains the Same, Rain Song, Over the
It's
Hills,
very good.
No Quarter, The Crunch, The Ocean. I think it's just amazing.
It's top notch. What, in your opinion, have been the top five most influential bands that have hit the scene in the last 5 years, like since 2015, 2016?
Shoot. Um, I mostly listen to the classic rock,
Sure,
but of
me too.
course there's been a few really good standout bands that have hit the scene, like Greta Van Fleet. They've really been kicking down the
Absolutely.
door for rock and roll and in this modern era. Tyler Bryant and the Shakedown, the Struts,
Two pretty good
um,
ones there.
the Toadies were really good too.
Ah, I love the
Um,
Toadies.
I know
Love the
Audio Slave
guys.
was like in the early 2000s, but I love them too. Jet,
Yeah,
oh my gosh, Jet, I love Jet.
very good.
Yeah, all those bands. And of course, I like a little bit of funk, so I like Bruno Mars. I think Bruno Mars
Yeah.
is one of the best singers in at least in the 21st century. I think he's just amazing.
What's the worst like goof up you've made on stage before? Like if you like ever just totally blown it. I've only played a handful of gigs in my lifetime, and the first gig we played, we left all of the cymbals at home. And
Oh
we had to go
no!
back and get them.
Worst goof? Um, I think one that immediately comes to mind was I was playing a July 4th festival. It was in 2016, I think, and I seem to remember it was like maybe an hour show, maybe like an hour and a half. And my parents have been telling me all day, drink some water, drink some water. It's summer in Texas. You're gonna get dehydrated. And I'm
No.
like, Mom, Dad, I'm fine. I'm fine. I can handle this. I go on
I'm a grown
stage.
up. I'm 16, mom. Come on.
Yeah, I'm 16. And of course I started playing. I was doing fine for like the first half, and then by the time I had gotten to like maybe like the last third of the entire set, I was loopy. I couldn't like see straight. I couldn't like stand still. I was just like wibbly wobbly over the place. So and of course after the show, I always like to meet my fans after my shows, and after the show, I was so just like out of it. You'd think that I just like drank something or something, you know? Um, I came off stage, I sat at the table and I was like, well, what's your name? Did you like the show? Okay, here you go. So that's the one that comes to mind.
That's a good one. I feel like when you interview artists, like, and this is so common when you interview artists and you're like, what's the worst show you've ever played? They're always like Texas State Fair because they all like get so sick at it because it's so hot and you're not expecting it to be because it's like October or whatever. Okay, so what's your number one concert experience as a audience member that you've been in?
I've been to three big concerts. Four? Three? The one that really comes to mind is Paul McCartney. I
Oh
saw
yeah.
Paul McCartney when Cowboy Stadium was still Cowboy Stadium,
Oh man.
um, in 2009, and it was just it was amazing because that Paul McCartney has such an incredible catalog of music that he can go through. And by that time in 2009, he would have been 67, something like that.
Yeah.
And of course, even nowadays, he's playing 3-hour shows, something
Crazy.
like that, because
Plays
he
and
can.
plays. Yeah.
And of course, he doesn't have any filler to play
Right.
because he's been doing this for like 50 years.
Yeah.
Um, and it was just incredible just to get to see my hero, my idol, just go up there and play all these songs that
Yeah.
I've grown up on. So I'd have to say Mr. McCartney.
That's awesome. Supposing
All
you were
right.
to get on a spaceship and go into space forever, like
Okay.
Space Oddity style, and you can only take one album with you to listen to for the rest of eternity.
One.
One. What would you choose?
Well, I have 10 over here. I just have to pick one. Um,
You can show us
if
all of
I
them.
had,
If you want to show
I,
us
I'll
all
show
of
I'll
them,
show you all of them.
then you got to pick from them though. You're not getting out
Okay.
of it so easy.
Yeah, I'm not gonna slack on the question. The 10, at least this is for Desert Island. These are the 10 for the Desert Island.
Yes.
I'll pick the one for the spaceship. Um, Rubber Soul.
Oh, absolutely. Love.
They're all in chronological order. This is the earliest album that I have in here. I mean, there's so many different songs on this album, and each of them stand on their own. I mean, there's In My Life, there's Girl, there's I've Just Seen a Face. This is the U.S. version,
Mhm.
just incredible. Then I've got Revolver up next.
Another
This
goodie.
is Yeah, this has got Taxman, Eleanor Rigby, Here,
Okay.
There, and Everywhere. She said, Tomorrow Never Knows. Uh,
So
just
good.
amazing stuff. Of course, Sergeant Pepper. Sergeant Pepper is,
Do it.
I mean, what can I say? I think I've already said it all. Up next is Abbey Road.
Yeah.
Abbey Road medley is one of the finest accomplishments to to music in general. It's got "Come Together,"
Human
"Something," "Oh
accomplishment.
Darling." Yeah. Uh,
Pyramid? No, but Abbey Road.
Up next is I guess would be an unusual one for some people, but I got "Ram" by Mr.
Okay.
McCartney.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
is the
yeah.
only album that is credited to Paul and Linda McCartney. It's got a lot of deep cuts on here. It's such a unique album. It's almost a quirky album,
Yeah, it is.
but it's so undeniably Paul, and I've just fallen in love with it. Next up is "Houses of the Holy." Pretty much said everything
Good
there
one.
is to be said about this album.
Yeah.
Up next is "Physical Graffiti,"
It's fantastic
a
album.
great record. "In My Time of Dying," "The Rover," "Trampled Underfoot," "Kashmir." Such a great album. Next, "A Night at the Opera," a
Ooh,
great album.
yes.
It's got, of course, "Bohemian Rhapsody." How can I not?
Quintessential glam rock album.
Yeah, "You're My Best Friend." "I'm in Love with My Car," my mom's favorite. Two more. This is "Wings Over America."
Yes.
I could have picked every other Wings album, but this live album either is as good as the studio albums or better than the studio albums. And it's got so many great songs from Venus and Mars. A few of the good songs from Wings at the Speed of Sound, Band on the Run, of course. And the last album I have is Back in Black.
Oh, yes.
I had to take one really rocking album. It's of course everybody knows the songs on here. It's just
Old
an amazing record. But the one Spaceship album, if I had to pick, that's tough. I want to say Sergeant Pepper. I think I'm gonna go with Sergeant Pepper.
Yeah, I think it would be nice to listen to Sergeant Pepper's in space.
Yeah,
I think
that would be a crazy experience.
so. I just have one more question for you, and it's kind of a big question. We'll wrap up with talking about your most recent single, which is fantastic, by the way.
Thank
But
you. What is the meaning of life now?
yeah, yeah. Now, just briefly, I was thinking about a couple of artists have done some collaborations and whatnot with classic artists recently, like Miley Cyrus did this song with Stevie Nicks. If you had the opportunity to see one entire album redone by another artist, what would you choose? And this is what I wrote down. Weirdly, I said, for example, what if Led Zeppelin had done Sgt. Pepper's? So, but you can't use that one. You have to choose a
Right.
different one. So if you could see one entire album redone by a different artist or band, what album would it be, and who would you choose to redo it?
Ooh,
It's a big question.
it is a big question. I I I really wish with all my heart that the Beatles would have stayed together. If of course, there's so many reasons as to why they broke up, but I wish they would have stayed together. So it would probably be a solo Beatle record that I wish that all four of them could have recorded and put
Right.
their own themselves into the records, because that's what made the Beatles so special, is that Paul would bring his own song in, and then the other three would put their little finishing touches on it,
Right.
and it made it so wonderful and just so perfect.
Right.
Because John and Paul were good on their own, but they were unmatched together. So if I could pick one album, I'd probably go with Band on the Run. Because
Okay.
Band on the Run has Jets, it's got Let Me Roll It.
Yeah.
I think they would have had fun with that record.
Yeah, I think that if all of the Beatles would have done All Things Must Pass by George Harrison, it would have been like incomparable. And it already is like one of my
Yeah,
favorite records. But I think if it had had all four of them on it, I mean, it would have been very different. Like it wouldn't have been as George, you know.
right.
It is very George Harrison. But I think you're right. They all brought their unique things to it. Cool. Well, do you want to talk a little bit about your single, and we'll kind of wrap it up, and we can talk a little bit about what you've got coming up in the future.
Sure. My newest single is called "Heart Full of Love." It's an acoustic guitar driven song, a first actually, because most of my songs are with big electric guitars, overdriven sounds, big drums. But I do play my fair share of acoustic shows from time to time, so I figured that I'd write at least one song that is meant for that type of setting. And it's really just a song that's dedicated to all the people that have supported me throughout my journey and in my life. Um, Especially my parents, who of course have been there every step of the way. It's just really a song for all my supportive people.
Yeah, it's really a great. It's very sentimental, and it was like very emotionally. It's like heavy, but like in a good way, you know. It's got that vibe of like you said, like gratitude and appreciation, but it's also like it's just like it's got a lot of it's got a lot of power behind it. It's very good. We'll link it below this interview. Do you have any sneak peeks or insight for us as to what may be coming as far as new music this year or in the near future?
There is going to be new music this year. There's going to be a whole, well, at least a whole lot more than there was this past year. Um, there's definitely going to be 3 singles coming out this year.
Okay.
Um, this album, which is most likely going to be released this year, of course, anything could happen. But this new group of songs is going to be recorded with the band instead of, because
Okay.
believe it was just me.
Right.
I did everything and I just recorded everything. But I want to make this album with my band because I'm really proud of where we are right now. So I want us to get in the studio and record these songs. But yeah, I'm going to be recording some new songs probably either this month or next month in February,
Awesome.
and it's definitely going to be coming out this year. So be on the lookout.
That is so exciting. Well, thank you so much for giving us your time, Griffin. We're going to keep tabs on you and see what you're doing. And the whole banded family is very much looking forward to seeing what you do. And yeah, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me, Chloe.
Yeah.
Got a heart full of